We're here with
Edmond.
Edmond of Dordeduh, previously of Negură Bunget, and also part of various other projects. You also have your own studio. You have done live sound for a lot of the concerts that I went to in Timișoara. How are you today?
I just had a show last night, and I don't think it's an hour since I woke up, so I'm a bit.
Yeah, it's early. It's quite early in the morning
Yeah.
for me, so we would both need an extra cup of coffee probably.
That would be nice.
All right. So what are you working on right now?
Like musically,
Yes.
we started to work on the new album for Dordeduh. I also secretly worked a bit for a song from Sunset 12 House, but my guys don't know about it.
All right. Well, this is how they'll find out.
Yeah. But mainly we focus on Dordeduh, and that's also why I was not telling the guys, because it was just a moment of inspiration, and I started to record some ideas, but mainly we are focusing on Dordeduh, new album.
Right. Even though the space between Dordeduh albums has been quite large, how far back did you start working on her?
I think it would be safe to say about 3 years before, or maybe 2.5 years before it was released. No, before it was released, even longer, because it was the conditions with the pandemic and stuff, and we actually had our album at least 1 year delayed since we already had it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was madness. Nobody knew really what to do and how to do, and yeah.
So like 2 years before it was sent to the label rather than 2 years before it was released.
Yeah, more 3 years before it was sent to the
Mm-hmm.
label. But it was a bit, definitely not my regular environment, because that album started to be conceived after, I don't know, 9 p.m. after I put my kids to the bed and stuff.
Mm.
So time-wise, in order to make something happen, we need to stretch quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this explains why your release schedule is very, very stretched right now.
Yeah, that's the good thing with Prophecy, because we were not having any kind of pressure from
Mm-hmm.
their side. Even we have some contracts and stuff. They said when it's done, and when it's much better to have a good product than a product that you do it in hurry and you don't put enough energy in it.
Mm-hmm.
So in this regard, they are very, very artist friendly.
All right. Did you feel like you were overly perfectionistic about it? Like it had to be done in exactly the right way, and that might have led to some delays?
Not this time.
All right.
Not this time, because this time we were externalizing
Externally. Okay.
all the things. For example, we recorded here in the studio the whole material, but we mixed it with Jens Bogren,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a very different approach from how we would do it. But that was also the purpose, because we wanted to have something
From the outside.
Yes, and for example, I would probably not mix my vocals so much in front.
Mm-hmm.
But we were very familiar with his work. We could say we in the band we are 3 sound engineers, so we studied how he works and everything, and we knew already what to expect. So, but I'm really happy that we let somebody else to have a vision. We had some guidelines and everything for the album, but we actually also, it was the same with the cover.
Mm-hmm.
Costin Chioranu, he said that he can do the cover for us if we let him.
You give him free rein.
Yes, which is not something that we often do. It's not that we are control freaks, but we know very precisely what we want to do. But in the end, there were needed a bit of guidelines, but I think the end result is really nice.
Yeah, I do like the album very much. I'm still in the gang that prefers the debut album, mostly because of the space that I was in mentally when, not mentally, musically, when it came out, and when I discovered it. It's harder for music to have that same impact when you're 10 years older.
Definitely, but it's also, I don't think that people should expect things like that. I mean,
I didn't expect things generally, but obviously, like when an album, you're anticipating it for so long. Like when Tool finally released their long expected album, you do have you're kind of hoping for something.
Yeah, I mean, from your perspective, it makes all the sense.
Yes.
From my perspective, it's a bit different.
So, did you feel nervous about how people would appreciate it after such a long? Do you feel like a long delay makes anticipation for it feel even more stressful?
It's not really our case because we are not such a known band. We have some following for sure, but it was not.
Yeah, well, you're not Tool.
Yeah, we are not Tool, and we don't do things necessarily for the audience. Of course, we care about how it is received, and in the first weeks after the release, you're looking after to see how people reacted on it. But for me, it's much more important that I know that I did the job right. And after that, I feel that everything else is outside of my control, and it's people will react anyway. I knew that, for example, some die-hard black metal fans will not be really happy about what we did. But it is what it is. This is the way that we express ourselves in this time, and I'm not necessarily thinking when I'm doing an album to please somebody. It's much more... If I know that I did it the way I wanted and I managed to put all the aspects into it, then I'm really happy about it. And after that, yeah, it's not my job anymore.
Now, we're gonna go back all the way to the beginning. Like a lot of this is stuff you have talked about a bit more extensively in other interviews, so sorry if you have to go over it again and again. But I was very curious about how you started making your own instruments.
Oh, that's a really long time ago.
Yeah, well, we go all the way back.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm not coming from a wealthy family, but even if you were wealthy in the communist era, which was kind of impossible, you were not having the opportunity to buy instruments. And that was the problem, because all the instruments, there was only one factory in Reghin, which, Romanian factory. And most of the instruments that they did it for the export. It was not for the Romanian people, so it was really hard to find an instrument. And we did not have the money, and we did not have the opportunity to buy an instrument. So I started to do my own instruments. But like I could say that the first 5-6 guitars were complete failure. But I was also very young. I mean, the first one I started to do probably when I was like 6, 7. So.
What music did your parents listen to?
Weirdly enough, my parents were not that much into the music, but it was also the fact that back in those days, you had only the national television and some radio channels which were filled with
propaganda.
Communist propaganda, and we were not really attending those stuff. And I would say that I was much more influenced when I started to watch Serbian TV and Hungarian TV.
Because we're so close to the border, and you could find
Yeah,
the ways.
Yeah. But the thing was that you could not have it with a regular antenna.
Yeah.
So you had to build special antennas and also antenna amplifiers to amplify the signal. And I was quite decent in electronics, and I built my own stuff. So I was able to watch TV. And I mean, I will never forget that probably one of the first live shows that I saw, there were two quite known bands from Serbia, Dordeduh and Bajaga, and I saw a show at the national television around 9 p.m., 10 p.m. in the middle of Belgrade, and that was impressive for me. I mean, for us who did not had any kind of entertainment like that, it was like, wow. And since then I was quite hooked with this, but that was probably in like, I don't know, 86 or something like that. So a long time ago.
Yes. And then the revolution happened.
Yeah, revolution.
Yeah, well, this is what we'll
Yeah,
call
yeah.
it. It's
Yeah.
the event when
Yeah.
the Ceausescu was no more, and
Yeah. The end of the communist era in Romania,
end of the communist era in Romania,
officially. Yeah.
and then most importantly, culturally for us, the opening of the cultural borders.
Yeah, it was like that, but it was really hard to travel.
Mm.
For example, in the beginning when we started to play outside, that's longer ago. I mean, I think the first show outside was in 96 or 97. And you had to show money at the border, that you have enough money. So it was a bit embarrassing, to be honest. And the amount of money was quite high, so
I reckon you had to wait a lot more at the border.
That's for sure. And we had to borrow money from relatives and stuff to be able to show that money, to go to the shows, play, and come back. Yeah.
Right. And were you able to get physical releases of music before the fall of the regime? Like smuggled from anywhere?
In my case, not really. There were some people from Serbia who came into our markets and sold all this different stuff, but I was not really into the music that they
sold.
Yeah. For example, there's a quite famous artist from Serbia, Lepa Brena, and that was all over. But I had no common vibe with that music. So.
She's still singing.
Yeah, I know. She had a show here in Timișoara.
Yeah, I sort of wish I saw that just for how hilarious the concept of seeing a Lepa Brena show would be.
I think they were quite professional people. I mean, if I of course see things also through a technical point of view, and I think it was a quite big production. To be honest, I don't know how she performed, but I think the musicians that she had and everything, that was pretty high end.
Right. And then after 1990, what do you remember? What the first album that you bought was?
It was after 90.
Yeah, after 90.
Yeah, after 90, my first album that I personally bought, I think was Scorpions' Crazy World.
Oh yeah, the one with Winds of Change.
Yes.
Right.
But we had this cassette trade and stuff. So I had some stuff copied from one cassette to other a bit earlier. And I think my first metal stuff was Iron Maiden, Life After Death. I think that was the first time when I started, like, I was listening, I was hearing metal music before, but that was the first time when I was having a cassette playing metal music in my stereo.
And do you have a moment where you knew you wanted to make music?
Yeah, that's way before. It's way before even I started to build my guitar.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew from the beginning, when I was really young, that I want to do music.
Mm-hmm.
That was...
But did you have an experience like, okay, so this is how it's done, this is what I want it to be like when listening to somebody's music?
Enya had a huge impact on me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was on the Serbian television listening. They had something like before starting the program, they were putting like, I don't know, half an hour of what was kind of trending in those times. And I heard Enya, and it was so different from anything else. And for a child, because I was still a child back then, that music resonated quite intensely with me. I think it's a music of fairies or whatever you want to call it, but it had a quite huge impact. And it was not that I wanted to do music like that, but I remember that
It unlocked the potential of music.
Yeah, and it was more about the fact of the possibilities that you can do, because that was so out of the box back in those days. There was that Orinoco Flow song, and it had a video and the whole atmosphere and everything. It was so different from everything that was made, and I realized back then that this is not a music necessarily to play at a party, or it was my first, I don't know, epiphany in this regard, that music can be something else than this regular entertainment, because it had much more deeper feelings. It represented completely, I don't know, back in those days there were this kind of Samantha Fox and Madonna and stuff like that was trending in the female world. So Enya was so different, and it was something else, and that was the first time when I saw that you can create something completely out of the box and completely different compared with what was trending.
Yeah, in my mind I sometimes mistake Enya for Lisa Gerrard of Dead Can Dance. So I think they inhabit very similar spaces, even though they're very different.
Yeah, it's more an introspective music. It's not something, I don't know, for a party.
Yeah. And then, what was Timișoara like in the 90s?
Of course, for me it's really subjective, because I was here and...
Yeah, well, I'm not looking for data, I'm looking for personal experience.
Yeah. The thing was, it was a buzz somehow, because the so-called revolution started here. And it was, I don't know, it was... people were filled with hope. They were filled with I don't know, a certain interest to change and to do things differently. And for example, the first show that I played, it was in, I think, 94. And that show was actually made with handmade equipment from multiple bands. That we put together the equipment, and we actually played in a dining hall of a university, and it was something like spontaneous made. It was not something that, I don't know, had tickets selling and you had lights or whatever. No, it was like really spontaneous. We just put things together and had a show. And it was more, I don't know, it was more into DIY. You were not really having equipment. Most of it was even Russian production, or I don't know if you were lucky to have something from the Western world, but that was quite rare. So technically it was very challenging, and it was, I mean, I started my first band, it was called Hell Survivor. I'm really rarely about it. But that was in '91 made, and we played kind of thrash metal, wannabe thrash metal, because we really sucked in playing. But yeah, and after that I started a death metal band, Putrefaction, and that was probably in '92, '93, before Vikan Rede and Makrotomia.
And none of these released anything, right?
No. And we also, I'm quite sorry because we never recorded anything, even in like really shitty situation, but we never recorded.
Yeah, obviously it would have sucked, but it would be nice, like a token of old times, to hear what death metal in Romania would have sounded like in '92.
It sucked big time.
Well, it sucked big, obviously, but it's like extreme metal in Romania. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when it started, because I believe a lot of whatever there was, it was not recorded, or if it was recorded, it was not released.
Yeah.
So up until like Altar's The Last Warning, what was there for in Romanian extreme metal?
It was actually, it happened quite a lot, and Altar was definitely not the most extreme band back days. For example, what we played with Putrefaction, it was quite close to grindcore. It was not, we were not able to play that fast as I don't know, like Napalm Death Scum or whatever, but we definitely made a lot of noise. Yeah, it was really extreme. What we played was quite extreme and quite chaotic. But that was the expression that we were able to I don't know, embody in those times.
Yeah. It would have been nice to be able to hear it.
Yeah, it's also with Vikan Rede. I don't have
a lot of what was not on the one.
Yes, because we actually recorded two demos before that, and at a certain amount I had somewhere at a certain time I had somewhere the tapes, but I could not find them, and asked around, nobody has them. It's because there on those tapes there are even songs that were before the songs that we released. There were another 4 songs that we never released. And I'm quite sorry that I don't have those tapes.
Yeah, that would have been a nice historical record.
Yeah, it sounded like really, really bad, but
yeah, well, demos like that, especially in emerging countries, they're less for musical pleasure when you're listening to them 30 years afterwards. Like, I suppose if you hand them to somebody in the 90s who hasn't had the opportunity, they would enjoy it. And I reckon you enjoyed it a lot when you made them, but now they're historical.
Yeah, but unfortunately nobody has them. I even have some friends who are collectors of this kind of stuff, and they also don't have them. So I don't know if somebody has them and hears this interview, just please contact me.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about how Vikan Rede came to be.
We already had Makrotomia in those days.
So Makrotomia was the one that came before it.
Yes.
And
even before that, it was we were called Acheron, but we found out that there's a death metal band, Acheron, and we changed the name into River of Suffering, and after that was Makrotomia.
I remember in the article I told you, I pinpointed that in 1997, if somebody were to ask me, well, I wouldn't respond because I was just born, but if I could, and they asked me if would it be Makrotomia or Negură Bunget that would get big, I would have answered Makrotomia.
Yeah, many people thought that way, even in that time. Yeah, Makrotomia was somehow the band, and Negură Bunget was the project, or in the beginning, Vikan Rede. So it was more like that.
Yeah, I think the rate of individualization, the progressive gothic doom that you're doing there, was a bit more interesting than the second wave black metal worship that you were doing with the first with Zerninduse. Then Salab, Molxa, and all the other ones came and kind of knocked it out of the park. What did it feel like at the time?
With Vikan Rede and Negură, or with
yes, with all of these bands, like how did, when you were in like 97, how did you feel like musically it was going to be, what were your thoughts about the very near future?
First of all, I'm really sorry that we did not record an album with Macrotomia, because exactly in '96 we had like 6 songs, quite long songs, which were more into death metal, doom death metal, but there was a bit of doom. Even the previous one was more into gothic metal, gothic death metal more. But then we switched into more progressive vision, and we said, okay, these are simple death metal songs, fuck them, we don't record them. And we were focusing more on the new material. And nowadays I'm really sorry that I still have some demo cassettes with those songs, but actually those songs were not bad songs, and
Songwriting wise.
Songwriting was nothing really exceptional, but it was something that represented us in that time. And I'm just sorry that those songs were never released.
Can they be released now?
I don't think so. I mean, I could start to recover some of the songs, because I think I have them all on different cassettes. But most of the people that were in the band are either dead or on other continents.
Do you think they would object?
To be honest, I don't have time for such a project these days. I mean, I prefer to invest that time in the new...
In something new.
Yeah, in the new Dordeduh. Then it would be nice, yes, if in an ideal space we would have time for stuff like that, but no, I don't think so.
Or maybe ask somebody else to do this work for you.
We actually did something like this. We have here in the studio an album with Macrotomia, before we turned it into Transchatla. And
so this was like after the Macrotomia reunion in 2013?
Yes, exactly after that. We recorded an album with some songs, unreleased songs, and also some reinterpretation from songs of Rite of Individuation, but also some songs that were from the period of our first demo. And we down-tuned it, everything, and it sounded much more up to time. But there are songs from that era. Like probably they were composed in '94 or something like that.
Right. And why is it not out?
Because I did not have time to mix it. But it is recorded. I think it's recorded everything. Also with Transchatla, we have the full album except one song where I was not finishing the lyrics, but the whole album is recorded.
All right. So when do we expect it?
I don't think that I'm gonna release that anymore.
You can't just tease us like that.
No, but honestly, I don't have time. I mean, to be able to do something like that, I mean, for me, it will require like at least 1 month non-stop work. I don't have that nowadays. I know it sucks. I also would like to...
Yeah, well, it sucks for me too, because I've been waiting for it.
What can I say? I worked my ass off for that material. It's actually quite complex material. But it is what it is.
I think all of us can relate to wishing we had more hours in the day and more months in a year.
Or at least, I don't know, if, for example, if you would be able to sustain yourself by doing music.
Which is something we cannot do in the current economy.
Before pandemics, I actually did that. I was working out of all that we produced in a musical scene. Not only musically, but also as a studio or doing events or sound for events or stuff like that.
Yes, and that's not possible anymore.
No, not in my current situation, no.
All right. It's understandable, depressing, but understandable.
You have to think how it felt that of the first person.
Yeah.
So to throw out like 30 years of work on the window and start something completely new. You never had anything to do with that. It was a bit depressing, yeah.
So let's go a bit back to the 90s. In Vikanrede there was another pseudonym. I don't really remember. It was a third person.
Yeah.
Valaha something.
But he was in the band for quite short time.
Right. So then he completely disappeared from the story.
Yeah.
Right. As I was wondering, because it could have been a pseudonym that was then used by it was just a pseudonym change, and we don't know who that person.
No. I was not meeting the guy since then. I think I met him once, but he went completely out of the metal scene and stuff. From what I know, at least 20 years ago, it was like that.
Okay. And so what then led to the change of the name to Negură Bunget?
This is we were never really talking about this publicly. It was a bit Vikanrede was something. I mean, I always had interest into occult stuff and things like that, but also being interested in anthropology and ethnology and stuff like that, I always wanted to express something more from our local area. And actually, that was the main change. I felt that with Vikanrede it was more something like, I don't know how to say.
The vibe that I got from it was more vampiric, which I think it's a bit fitting for a band from Transylvania. But
it was like that, and we wanted to actually to approach this thing because, of course, everybody knows Bram Stoker and that kind of vision, which is completely different from how it was perceived here, and how were probably people from, I don't know, up in the mountains in village were talking about this. So it was a completely different perspective, and actually this is what we wanted to I don't know. Also, what is Transylvania? Transylvania is the land behind the forest. And the land behind the forest was not necessarily meaning into something physical. So it was never meant that there's a physical place behind the forest. No, it was never a physical place. It was something else, something beyond physics.
Which is why your music sounds otherworldly.
Probably, I don't know. But the thing is that people don't have this perception, and back in the days it was pre-internet, pre-mobile phone, pre-everything. So people had no chance to perceive the story of Transylvania in a different way, and that was the thing. But it was still a quite general concept. We wanted things to go more particularly, and actually, this is how also the name came from, because mist, because Negură means mist. Mist is a thing that is known for also magical particularities, and there are a lot of traditions where they say that into the mist, I don't know, wizards were traveling and stuff like that.
So it's sort of a window between worlds.
Yes. And the truth is that Negură was coming with the term Negură, because Negură it came actually from a Dacian word, and for me it was more the idea was mine, but he had the word for that, because I was saying chață. Chață, it means also mist, but it's more modern term. Yeah.
It would be weird to think that the band could have been called Ceață Bunget.
Bunget is also
his idea?
No, it's a word from Dacian language. So he wanted to have this tract to this quite limited knowledge of folklore from that times.
Right.
Yeah.
You are somebody with a lot of interest in anthropology. You mentioned that you
Yeah.
studied this extensively.
Yeah.
How much do we know about? So for people who do not know, the Dacians are the Thracian people that lived in Romania before the Roman conquest. How much do we know about their culture and language especially? Because I don't think that they left a lot in writing.
No, and they actually what we have is not from the local writings. It was more let's say more mainstream people from those times were writing about us, and that's what is somehow stored in the history. So, but also those things are talking very much into metaphors, so you don't really know how much is the bias of the person who writes that stuff and how much is like real truth. Because it was quite known that they were quite fierce and quite courageous people, but people don't know that they were also quite tricky people. They tricked the Roman Empire for example, making fake coins for
Barter, for trade.
Yes, and they realized after probably more than 10 years that they've been fucked. So
Yeah, it's a bit harder when they're not writing about it themselves. You have to think about, okay, the person who is writing about the Dacians, are they writing out of admiration or are they making propaganda? For example, somebody of the Romans would try to write something about the Dacians to convince the people that Dacians are a threat and we have to go to war with them.
actually with them it was quite weird because they were not really, I think they were just bothered by the Dacians. It was not really a desire to conquest.
Yes.
Because for them it was a huge effort back then. And I think Dacians were quite pissing them off, to be honest. I think that was more because they had of course it was the Danube, and they crossed the Danube and
Did raids.
yes, and I think this happened quite for a long time, and they said, okay, fuck you guys, now we come after you.
All right. So the lyrics in Negură Bunget are adapted from a very archaic version of Romanian. Some of the words you say have this Dacian origin. And how was the process of writing them? Because you're still using that in Dordeduh today. So what's the process of finding out how to deliver the message in as authentically archaic way as possible?
To be honest, at least what occurs in my writing, because also Negru did some writing, for me it was not that much the interest in going archaic. It was much more about what those words were expressing and what was different from the, let's say, more modern terms. What was the particularity that those words had? And for me, for example, if I don't know, an historian is looking on our lyrics, they would say that that's a fucked up thing because, for example, we have words from certain era or from a certain region of Romania, and other words from completely different background and different time as well. So for me, it was more important what it expressed. So not that much to be accurate, like historically.
Right. So can you give us an example of a term, an older term that you used, that you feel a synonym from today's language does not convey the entire meaning, and you had to use that particular word?
For example, Negură. When you say nowadays Ceață doesn't, Negru, it has a similarity. So when you say Negură, you already feel much more dark.
Yes, and it's also from how it rolls on the tongue. I think Ceață, that sound, it's a bit more striking, spiky. Meanwhile,
Probably,
Negură feels more heavy, more like a...
Yeah. So this kind of things were much more interesting for us, and how it felt when you were saying those things, and what was the feeling that turned into you when you were I don't know, saying those words. Saying is not saying more screaming, but
Yeah.
yeah.
You did have some singing as well.
Back in those days, like really less.
Yeah. I do remember like the very first clean vocal passages that were in the very early days. Those sounded very awkward.
That was the capacity
That
back
was
then.
Yeah, but it's interesting looking specifically at the clean vocals, how much they were evolving, and how on it wasn't such a long period between these two albums, but you could tell that this aspect especially was so changed.
Yeah, now I can tell you something that probably will sound weird, but I never intended to be a frontman or vocalist, or I just wanted to be a guitar player. So I to be honest, when I started to realize that okay, I will be a vocalist for a long time, that was not something that was appealing to me. I never felt comfortable being in front of people, talking with people. It was, if I would have had somebody else doing the vocals, I would definitely switch. So it was not my goal of becoming a vocalist at all. Even nowadays, my guys are...
Oh, it's a bit late to find somebody now.
Yeah, but I would like to have somebody else. Way better than me. Yeah.
All right. What was releasing like? Yeah, this is the one Romanian metal album, looking back at it now. But what did it feel like at the moment?
With that album, I managed to do some things the way I wanted. In my eyes, like right. For example, quite a significant part of the writing was made. I rented a house quite close to a lake. It was the last house into a village, so I had a lot of privacy. And all I did over there was composing and meditating. And cooking for myself. And that's, for me, the right environment and the right way to do an album. This is how I work. I would not say that this could work for somebody else, but for me, it was perfect.
I don't think that's something you're able to do much nowadays.
I do it, but not for such extensive time. Because back then, I had the time to do that, and it felt right. It felt right, and I had the chance to go quite deep into what I wanted to express, and yeah.
All right, and the tours with Negură Bunget at that time, they were getting larger and with more personnel. What was it like going on stage in that tour?
In 2003, I think we did our first European tour, but
This was right after Negură Bradului.
Negură Bradului was way before. We already had the songs for. We even played live songs from Om already. Om was actually composed in 2001. Started to be composed in 2001. Cesarul de Lumini was composed in 2001.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite Negură Bunget song.
Mine too.
The favorite one that you have ever composed, like specifically that intro guitar part. Like,
yeah, but this is, I think this is why I say that this is for me really important, because you cannot feel in those ways if you are not in those feelings. So for me, meditation, it takes a big part of what I do, because when you meditate, you're able to contract yourself a lot inside and to be aware of how things feel, and for me, a lot of creativity unleashes in those states. And I don't know, for me, it just works.
Right. Do you want to talk about what happened in 2009?
In 2000?
And 9.
I think we were talking quite a lot about it.
I haven't checked all the interviews. I'm not sure how touchy of a subject it is.
Nowadays, things obviously changed in me. I don't have anymore that anger, that present. I actually have much more compassion, even towards myself in those days, because for me it was quite hard.
That's good.
Yeah, and the sad part is that we cannot address these things anymore, because it would have been nice
To reconcile.
not necessarily the reconcile. I was not interested in that, and even nowadays I would not be interested, because my life changed in a completely different way. And to be honest, I know it sounds not nice, but I feel way better without having that person in my life. And this is true from my own perspective. It's not nice that...
I can relate to the feeling of not wanting someone in your life, even though you wish them the best.
Yeah. And the thing is that, when we had like really strong feelings on both sides, and those things, I feel like a camel, having something on your back that you carry all the time, and that feeling is not nice, and it's not nice to go through the life with that I don't know, baggage, extra baggage in your soul. And in this regard, I did a lot of things for my person to not carry that stuff anymore. I also have to say that a big chunk of those emotions actually got released when I went to his funeral. And
You were at his funeral?
yes,
I only saw Solfaur there.
no, we were both one day before.
Oh, okay, yeah.
One day before we visited him, we did not want it to be
Public.
Yeah, and because this was not something even easy for us. For example, I met with his mother, and actually I had a really good relation with his mother. And when we saw each other, we started to cry, both of us. So it was something really tense, and it's something that people may think whatever they want about this, but we did not want it to expose those things and those feelings in a wider public, because those things were personal for us and were...
Yeah, it's not something that's supposed to be shared with people who are not the people directly related.
Yes, and
they're not for headlines.
yeah, and there are always rude people, and there are always people who search some attention by commenting something stupid about it or whatever. And I never enjoyed this kind of things. I'm quite a private person. I don't like to
Be in the spotlight.
Yeah, never liked actually being in the spotlight.
All right. So then, in 2009, 2010, when the split happened. So for people who are not aware, like, what would you exactly pinpoint as this is when Negură Bunget stopped being the three of you?
Actually, it happened in Leipzig. We had a tour back then. We were coming from Inferno Festival. We had a show somewhere on the way, I don't remember, and after that Leipzig. And in Leipzig, after the show, we said, okay, this was the last show. We still played two shows, because we wanted to
You finish your commitments?
yeah, because it's not nice to announce 2 days before, okay, the show is not going to happen, for promoters, for people.
Yeah.
And actually, our last show was at Roadburn.
All right.
Yeah.
At the last ever show.
There.
So you knew before those last shows, okay, this was official, all three of you agreed that this will be the end for the band.
Yes.
Did you know at the time that Negură Bunget will continue?
No. Not even back then. My girlfriend was living in Netherlands, and we stayed. The Roadburn show was in Netherlands. We stayed over there. I mean, I stayed over there, and actually, I found out everything from internet.
Okay. I don't think you're the first one in the situation to have that happen. The people who are in the band as live members who would eventually join Negură Bunget, did they have any input in this? Like when you announced that this was gonna be it, they were aware of it, right?
Yes, and actually, what was the agreement is that, I don't know, we find a new drummer, and we kind of continue. We agreed that we will not use that name, because that name was the three of us, and that was it. And this was an agreement that we will not, any of us will use that name. And we changed the name, and we changed the drummer. We had quite a lineup that was quite working. This was the initial intention, but I will not discuss this issue, because that's past, and I'm fine with the past. I got my peace with that, and I think also people should respect that, because this is something, it was too much around, and it's really weird when you see that people are entitled to an opinion when they were definitely not knowing what the fuck they are talking about. So,
yeah, skeletons in the closet.
Yeah, and I don't want to perpetuate this whole story. Now, we look towards future, and past is past.
Past is past. And did you change how you feel about this past in the years since?
Yeah, like I told you, now I feel, first of all, it is never black and white. And I can pinpoint a lot of things that Negură did wrong, and like really wrong. But I also realized that all this also happened on my watch. So it is also my responsibility. For me, for example, I realized that it was way comfortable to be able to take care of the whole musical part, the whole creativity part, the whole things with recording, because we had also back then a studio, and I was the engineer in the studio. So everything that was related somehow to the making process of the music, that was in my charge. And he had the business charge. And on the paper, things were really nice played out. And this is, of course, you can pinpoint a lot of things that went wrong and so on and so forth. But for me, I also have to say that it was comfortable to be doing what I like to do most. Because this changed immediately when I started Dordeduh, when I started to take care of all the finances and all the things. Booking I also did also a bit before, but also a bit of interviews I did before, but I had to challenge myself also to do all the stuff related to the money and contracts and all that shit, which I really disliked. So it's never black and white. And when you start to put aside all that negativity and all the tension and all the, I don't know, history that builded up in a negative way, because it's not one event, this is a build-up of things. When you are able to put that aside and you let a bit of place for empathy, for compassion, and to see, and also the other person was not happy. I mean, when you do something stupid or something wrong, you don't do it from I don't know, from your happiness. You do it from a really shadow place, you know. And when you start to see that shadow place from a point of view of compassion or from empathy, things changed and the perspective changes a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really hard to put anger aside because it needs time. It needs time if you're not able to put a, I don't know, cleaning process in front of you, and it takes time. It takes time, and this is also what happened with us. Yeah.
But now all of this is just things that concern like you said, the people are closely affected. What remains for everyone years after the fact is the music.
Yeah.
In the future, it will matter much less the why Negură Bunget broke up. What will remain is Dordeduh and Negură Bunget, the music that you've made.
Yeah, I think that it's always, even if you see it from external point of view. For example, for me, I mean, Negură was a smart guy. I never understood why he was not using his smartness towards something more positive oriented. Mm-hmm. And this is a thing that will always haunt me, because what we could have achieved if all that capacity that he had would have been, I don't know, focused in a different way. And this is something really personal, so it's not something I would assume that for somebody else maybe this is not an important aspect. But for me, for 15 years, if things would have changed, and because I think there were a lot of good things in Negură Bunget, and there were a lot of things that they were made right. And I personally assured things to be right. And I think the future and the creativity from that could have been, I don't know, turning out differently. Mm. More, I don't know, to have more possibilities, more opportunities to express.
Mm. Did you listen to the music that they've made afterwards?
Unfortunately not.
Right. How does the prospect feel like to you?
This is also something, if it's about feelings, many of those people I felt that they betrayed me. But that was back then. Mm-hmm. I also did stupid mistakes in my life and stupid choices in my life. So
I wouldn't have asked you this like 5-10 years before, but now from what you're saying, it does seem like maybe now you have the emotional journey enough that maybe you are able to appreciate music from music. Well,
I don't think that I'm yet still that zen.
All right.
To not have any kind of feelings. But for example, we did quite recently some Ordinul Negru materials here in and Fulmineos was part, yes, and also Cursed Cemetery, which actually the album that they will release now with Cursed Cemetery, I think it's a pretty good one. So yes, I can have a more objective point of view, but it's also not something that I'm looking particularly to, I don't know, put myself into. Yeah, I try to be in peace with all these things because I realized that, okay, my pain was my pain, and I learned out of that pain a lot. And I don't think that any other situation in my life, even this was really bad and dramatic for me, I don't think that any other situation could have been learning me the way it did, because I believe that also from suffering and from pain you can learn, and that's my personal history, and this is how it went, and now I find peace with that.
And from what I've seen, I haven't looked at all the data. It seems like you're also revisiting old Negură Bunget material live with Dordeduh much more often now.
No.
Or what? No?
No.
Yeah. Okay, I got the wrong idea.
No, we had a show at Prophecy, and we never announced it that it is gonna be the last time that we gonna play Negură Bunget songs. It even was called Dordeduh performing Negură Bunget, and I was also talking with the guys. We don't intend to ever play those songs. Yes, because that's part of our past, and it was nice. I mean, it was 2022. It's already like many years after we split it with Negură, and just to go back for the sake of going back,
What did that show feel like?
it felt actually nice. I really enjoyed playing songs from Zrnindu. So it was interesting. Yeah.
Well, if I got everything that I wanted in life, what I would want was to hear Crugul Bradului performed in full.
We even had a request for a festival to do that.
All right.
But people don't realize what would that mean for us.
As time invested, especially.
Yes. I mean, for us, that's a really complex album. It's not something that now we take the guitar and play it. No, that. First of all, I don't think that I remember all that chords and everything that I was playing back then. And also, those songs we did not play for 20 years. It's even more, probably.
Yeah. And to put all that effort, which technically possible.
Yeah.
For one festival, that's a lot of investment.
It's a lot of investment, which I would rather invest into a new Dordeduh material, to be honest.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't even know how I'm gonna make that happen time-wise. So I'm not. All these things are sounding really nice on paper and they're really good ideas, and
until you actually have to sit down and do them.
Yes, for us it's really time-consuming. We don't have anymore this luxury to have the
time.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned that a lot of it is because of money. It's hard to do things as music when you have to earn your existence in a capitalistic society.
It is like that. Of course, for example, if I would invest my 8 hours of work in something like this, yes, then that would be possible. But there's also the time now, most of us, we have families, we have kids, and even, I don't know, most of the people of my age would understand this. But the thing is that, to be honest, it is not nice from me, to go, even playing live shows, it's more like a commitment than having fun. I mean, we take this thing really seriously. We try to be as professional as possible, so it's more like a work, not going to party. But it is not nice to let, for example, my girlfriend to stay with 3 kids at home and she should take care of everything and I'm going away. So I cannot do this to my family. And
Too much, yeah.
Yes, and it is not something. For example, my girlfriend is 100% supportive of my musical side. She even helped me not quit playing music for so many times. She encouraged me and pushed me towards still doing music. But out of respect, I cannot say, okay, you stay now with kids in home and take care of everything, and I'm going away for 3 weeks in a tour. These things are, I mean, she would be okay, but
But you would not feel nice having to do that.
Yes. Because I know what it is life in my current situation. So
All right. Now let's leave aside music making and talk about what the work that you're doing for music outside of making the music itself. Because you were doing sound for live events, you were doing you had this studio, and when exactly did you start each thing separately?
with the studio work, actually, it started when we recorded Maestro Svetnik. Because even in the beginning, in '94, when we started to record our first stuff, it was 95 with Macrotomia, we realized that back then it was really difficult to find an engineer that understands music. We were happy if, I don't know, an engineer was listening, I don't know, to AC/DC, Scorpions, and we were playing black metal. So it was,
even then it's a big jump.
yes. So rock and metal producer in Romania, it was really hard to find. So I started to learn, I don't know, on the making, how things should be done in this. And since then, I think that was in '98 recorded. And that was my first time when I started to play with the buttons.
All right.
Yeah.
And then as a live engineer?
As a live engineer, I think I started to do stuff since 2000, 2001, something like that. I started, it was, back then it was a lot of things made of handmade, DIY made equipment. And I even built some really small consoles and stuff back in the days. Because it was really hard. If you wanted to have a show happening, you had to have at least something that you can make it. And sometimes we, out of possibilities, we started to build those stuff. So this is how it started with me. It was really closely related also with my skills of electronics and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And as you're doing both of these things, you had a very big presence in Timișoara's live scene and music in Timișoara. And can you trace like what was the best period for Timișoara as a music scene and the worst? Obviously, worst would probably be the pandemic and
yes.
the even not just the pandemic, because you would expect like pandemic to wreck a music scene, but even before that, it felt like everything was going bankrupt.
Yeah, I mean, people don't know how much and how difficult it is to be able to keep alive a venue. And even like really simple things. For example, when you do a show and you have to take money from the bar to cover the expenses of the show, that's already a straight way to bankruptcy. So I was never really directly involved in the management of a venue. To be honest, we wanted even to buy DAOs, Jimmy, Soulflower and me, and because we have skills for that. But we realized that it is a huge risk because...
and a huge time investment.
With the time investment, I mean, if you do this your job, then you can probably survive somehow. But we realized that the scene locally, there was a point, like you said, right before the pandemics, when no business was good in this domain. And it was for us really risky and I'm happy that I was not investing, because with investing in that and after that coming with the pandemics and stuff, it would have been totally nightmare. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this was the worst period. What was the best one?
The best one. Even it was not happening much, but I think the best period was probably right after so-called revolution, because in those days, people, there was this feeling after, I don't know, 50 years of communist oppression, there was this feeling of liberty and freedom, and people wanted to express that, and there were a lot of bands that popped up right after, in the early 90s, and it was something, I don't know, like, or at least this is how I perceived it. It's like a magic period. People wanted to change the world. People wanted to do extraordinary things, and I liked very much that the vibe of the early 90s. The vibe of the early 90s. Timișoara was a, I don't know, really boheme place back in the days. Nowadays I don't feel it anymore. It's also, the city went probably close to twice the size that it was back in the days. But yeah, I would say that would be my favorite period.
And how do you see it now? There was this cultural capital. We had a lot of events, most of them free. I saw a lot of the old center being renovated. And now one or two more venues are popping up. How do you see the near future for Timișoara?
I still think that it is really hard for the business in this domain. It's, you know, when people have a certain amount of money that they would invest into entertainment, let's say generally, not whatever you want to do, to go to a party or whatever, you cannot design something that is more than that money. I mean, even you do like really great events and you invest into production and stuff, people still don't have more money than that. So some of the things are bound to be failures.
Right. So you just have to find more people. If the people who are coming to events, they can't come more.
Yes, and the thing is, also, I don't think that we have the education somehow to sustain the local community. People don't understand, if you're not going to pay a ticket, that venue is not able to survive, because this is how it works. And this is also when Davos was closing. We actually we held the last show over there with Transjatla, and I even had a short speech about this, because I said, this is gonna be gone. Now you won't have this venue anymore. And people don't realize, if you as a local community don't support your local community, that's gonna vanish. And I don't think that we have this mentality. People, I don't know, try to, I don't know, I even know personal friends, or I don't know, not necessarily friends, but people that I know, that they would prefer to stay in a pub and invest that money in 2 more beers than to pay the ticket to a show, which they would actually enjoy. So I think it's somehow in between. It's also not, you don't have any kind of support, like, I don't know,
from official
authorities, yes, in this regard, and even taxes for the tickets
are getting
higher. So it's this is in favor of big festivals, but not on the local venues.
Mm.
In big festivals, yeah, you can. I see those things are popping up more and more and more and more. And of course, it's nice to have a huge event and with big names and so on and so forth. But the local industry is going to be gone. So you have to have a certain plan if you want to maintain. And this is not something that affects only, I don't know, the events business. For example, Timișoara used to be a cultural hub. And this underground thing that was happening into venues and everything had a direct impact into that hub and underground culture. And I think this kind of things are really, really important. And I don't know if people in charge of the cultural aspect in a community, they are aware about these things. For example, for a long time, the cultural hub, for example, here in Timișoara, especially before the pandemics, was around Ether Club. You know, they were the people who were having this interest into cultural events and cultural expression. And I'm not talking only about music, talking about everything that's cultural, theater, I don't know, different arts. And people were gathering in certain points. And those points are actually the melting points where cultural expression is rising. So I don't know if people in charge of the cultural movement and in a local community or even in a government, they are aware about this kind of things, and they are aware of how culture it is born. But being connected with this, and I'm doing this for quite a long time, I see how things, and I have also my anthropologic background, so I can understand a bit these aspects, I think.
All right. We have to get close to the end of the interview. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I think we covered quite a lot.
Yeah, quite a lot.
I'm fine with it.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers.